The rain hit the windows of the bridge like bullets. Captain Elena Martinez held onto the railing as the ship tilted to the left. She had been sailing for 23 years, but she had never seen a storm like this one. The waves were as tall as buildings, and the wind screamed like a living thing. The MV Celestial Horizon was a cargo ship. It carried containers filled with electronics, clothing, and machinery from Japan to California. 43 people worked on this ship. They were from different countries. Some were from the Philippines, others from Indonesia, Greece, and Mexico. They all trusted Elena to keep them safe, but something was very wrong. "Captain, the engine room is flooding." The voice came through the radio. It was Miguel, the chief engineer. His voice was shaking. Elena could hear the fear in it. She pressed the button on her radio. "How bad is it?" "Very bad, Captain. The main engine failed. We tried to fix it, but water is coming in too fast. The pumps cannot keep up." Elena felt her heart sink. They were 800 miles from the nearest land. The storm had pushed them off course. No ports were close enough to help them. She looked at the radar screen. The green light showed empty ocean in all directions. "Keep trying to fix it," she said into the radio. "Do whatever you can." She turned to her first officer, a young man named David from Canada. His face was pale. "Get everyone into life jackets," she told him. "Make sure all the lifeboats are ready." David nodded and ran out of the bridge. Elena looked at the communications officer, a woman named Sarah from Australia. "Send out an SOS," Elena said. "Tell them we are taking on water. Give them our exact position." Sarah's fingers moved quickly over the keyboard. She spoke into the radio, her voice clear and professional. "Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is MV Celestial Horizon. We are a cargo vessel with 43 crew members. We are taking on water after engine failure. Our position is..." The message went out into the dark ocean. Radio waves traveled through the storm, reaching Coast Guard stations and other ships. Elena hoped someone would hear. She hoped someone would come. Down in the cargo hold, the crew worked frantically. Water was already knee-deep in some areas. The ship was leaning more to the left side with every passing minute. Pedro, a young deckhand from Mexico, was helping to move supplies. His hands were shaking as he grabbed life vests and emergency equipment. "Is help coming?" He asked Marcus, the radio operator who had come down to help. Marcus was a 24-year-old man from Singapore. This was only his second year working on ships. He tried to sound confident. "The captain sent the SOS. Ships will come. They always come." But Marcus was not sure. He knew how big the ocean was. He knew they were very far from land. He had read stories about ships that sank before help could arrive. He pushed those thoughts away and kept working in the engine room. Miguel and his team were fighting a losing battle. The water was up to their waists now. The smell of oil and salt water filled the air. Sparks flew from damaged electrical panels. They had tried everything to restart the engine, but it was no use. The damage was too severe. "We need to get out of here," shouted Dimitri, a Greek engineer. "This room will be underwater soon." Miguel knew Dimitri was right, but leaving the engine room meant giving up. It meant accepting that the ship was going to sink. He looked at his team. They were young men who trusted him. He could not let them drown in this metal room. "Everyone out," Miguel ordered. "Get to the upper decks now." They climbed the metal stairs as water rushed behind them. Miguel was the last one out. He sealed the door behind him, knowing he would never open it again. On the bridge, Sarah was listening to the radio. Static filled the speakers, mixed with voices. "Captain," she said, "I am getting responses." Elena rushed over. "Who is responding?" "A Japanese fishing boat, about 600 miles away. A cargo ship from Liberia, 400 miles south. A research vessel from Norway, 500 miles east. Sarah paused, listening to more voices. Captain, there are more. I count 6 ships that are changing course to help us. Elena felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. 6 ships were coming. But would they arrive in time? She looked out at the storm. The celestial horizon was listing badly now. The ship was tilted at a dangerous angle. She picked up the ship-wide intercom. Attention all crew. This is the captain speaking. We have sent out a distress call. 6 ships are responding and coming to help us. But we must prepare for the possibility of abandoning ship. Go to your emergency stations. Stay calm. Help each other. We will get through this together. Her voice was steady, but inside she was terrified. She was responsible for 43 lives. These people had families waiting for them at home. Children, parents, husbands, wives. They all expected their loved ones to return safely. The ship groaned. It was a terrible sound, like metal screaming. The celestial horizon was breaking apart. The storm was tearing it to pieces. David returned to the bridge. All crew are accounted for, he reported. Everyone has life jackets. The lifeboats are ready. Good work, Elena said. She looked at her watch. It was 3:47 in the morning. The storm showed no signs of stopping. The nearest rescue ship was still 400 miles away. 400 miles. In this storm, even at full speed, it would take many hours to reach them. Did they have that much time? The ship was sinking faster now. Water was flooding the lower decks. Soon it would reach the upper levels. Elena made a decision. Prepare to abandon ship, she ordered. Get everyone ready to board the lifeboats. We may not be able to wait for rescue. As the crew prepared, the radio crackled with more voices. Ships from different countries, speaking different languages, all saying the same thing. They were coming. They were on their way. Hold on, the storm raged on. The celestial horizon sank lower into the black water. And somewhere out in the darkness, 6 ships were racing through the waves, rushing toward people they had never met, risking everything to save strangers. This was the law of the sea. When someone calls for help, you answer, no matter the cost, no matter the distance. You answer the call. Captain James Okonkwo was drinking coffee when the distress call came through. He was sitting in his cabin on the Atlantic Promise, a large cargo ship traveling from Shanghai to Los Angeles. The coffee was bitter and strong, just the way he liked it. He was reading reports about the delivery schedule when his radio officer knocked on the door. Captain, we received an SOS, the officer said. His name was Thomas. A young man from Germany. James put down his coffee cup. Where? 400 miles south of our position. A cargo vessel is sinking. 43 people on board. James stood up immediately. He walked to the bridge and looked at the charts. 400 miles. In good weather, they could reach the position in about 12 hours. But this was not good weather. The storm was massive. It would take longer, maybe 16 or 18 hours. Change course, James ordered. Head south. Maximum speed. Thomas hesitated. Captain, the company will not be happy. We are already behind schedule. If we delay more, there will be penalties. James looked at the young man. There are 43 people dying in the water. I do not care about penalties. He picked up the satellite phone and called the shipping company in Rotterdam. A man named Mr. Vanderberg answered. He was the operations manager, and he cared only about money and schedules. Captain Okonkwo, why are you calling? Vanderberg asked. I am responding to a distress call. I am changing course to assist in a rescue. There was silence on the line. Then Vanderberg spoke his voice cold. "Absolutely not. You are already 2 days behind schedule. If you delay more, we will lose the contract. Continue to Los Angeles. People are dying," James said. "That is not our problem. The Coast Guard will handle it. You have a job to do." James felt anger rising in his chest. He had worked for this company for 8 years. He had always followed orders. But not this time. "I am going to help them," he said. "You can fire me if you want, but I am not leaving people to drown." He hung up the phone before Vanderberg could respond. Thomas stared at him with wide eyes. "Captain, you might lose your job." "Then I lose my job," James said quietly. "But I will be able to sleep at night." 600 miles to the west, Captain Yuki Tanaka received the same distress call. He commanded the Kazda no Yuta, which meant Song of the Wind in Japanese. It was a fishing trawler, much smaller than the cargo ships. His crew of 12 men had been fishing for tuna for 3 weeks. YUK, I was 56 years old. His face was weathered from years at sea. He had 5 children and 9 grandchildren waiting for him at home in Nagasaki. He looked at his first mate, a man named Kenji. "We are the closest ship," Kenji said. "But Captain, in this storm, our boat is small. It will be dangerous." Yuki knew this was true. The Kazi no Yuta was designed for fishing, not rescue operations in heavy seas. If they went into the storm to help, they might sink too. Then there would be 55 people in the water instead of 43. But Yuki also knew something else. His own father had been saved from a sinking ship 40 years ago. A cargo vessel had responded to the distress call and rescued his father and 20 other fishermen. Yuki had been 10 years old when his father came home and told the story. His father had cried while telling it, grateful to the strangers who had saved his life. "We are going," Yuki said. "Prepare the boat. We will help them." His crew did not argue. They knew their captain. They knew his heart. They turned the fishing trawler and headed into the storm. On the research vessel Northern Star, Dr. Astrid Johansen was studying ocean currents when her communications officer brought her the news. Astrid was a Norwegian scientist, 42 years old, with short blonde hair and sharp blue eyes. She had spent the last 6 months collecting data in the Pacific Ocean. "Dr. Johansen, there is a ship in distress," the officer said. Astrid looked at the position on the map. 500 miles east. "How many rescue ships are responding?" "Several, but they are all very far away." "We are closer than most." Astrid thought carefully. The Northern Star was a research vessel, not equipped for major rescue operations. They had a crew of 18 scientists and sailors. Their mission was important. They were studying climate change, gathering data that could help the entire world. But what good was saving the world if you could not save the people in it right now? "Change course," she ordered. "We are going to help." Her crew began preparing immediately. They had some rescue equipment, but not much. They would do whatever they could in different parts of the ocean. Other ships were making the same decision. A cargo ship from Liberia called the Sea Dragon. A container vessel from Singapore called the Eastern Pearl. A bulk carrier from Panama called the Mountain Express. Each captain faced the same choice: continue their journey or turn around to save strangers. Each captain chose to turn around. On the Atlantic Promise, James was studying the weather reports. The storm was getting worse. Wind speeds were over 90 miles per hour. Waves were 30 feet high. It would be a difficult journey. He called his crew together. "We are going to attempt a rescue," he told them. "It will be dangerous. The sea is rough, but there are people who need help. I will not order any of you to participate. If you want to stay below decks where it is safe, I will understand." His crew looked at each other. Then his bosun, a large man from Nigeria named Chidi, spoke up. "Captain, we are sailors. This is what we do. We will all help." The others nodded. James felt proud of his crew. On the Kazi no Yuta, Yuki and his men were securing everything that could move. In rough seas, loose equipment became dangerous weapons. They tied down nets, locked storage containers, and prepared their small rescue boat. Kenji approached Yuki. "Captain, my wife just had a baby. I have not even met my son yet, but I am glad we are doing this. It is the right thing." Yuki put his hand on Kenji's shoulder. "You will meet your son. We will all go home. But first, we help these people." The 6 ships pushed through the storm. Captains barked orders. Crews worked tirelessly. Engines roared at maximum power. Radio operators maintained constant communication, sharing positions and conditions. On the celestial horizon, Sarah was tracking all the rescue ships. She updated Captain Martinez every hour. The Japanese fishing boat is closest. They will arrive in about 14 hours. The others are behind them. 14 hours. Elena looked at her ship. It was sinking fast. Would they have 14 hours? She did not know, but she knew one thing for certain. 6 ships had heard their call. 6 captains had chosen to risk their vessels, their cargo, their schedules, and possibly their jobs to save 43 strangers. This gave her hope. Around the world, families of the rescue crews were getting phone calls. James called his wife in Lagos. Yuki called his daughter in Nagasaki. Astrid sent an email to her mother in Oslo. They all said the same thing. They were going to help a ship in distress. They did not know when they would be home. The families worried. But they also understood. This was the law of the sea. This was what sailors did. When the call came, you answered. You did not ask who needed help. You did not ask what country they were from. You did not ask if it was convenient. You just went. And so the fleet sailed through the night. 6 ships from 6 different nations. Different flags, different languages, different purposes. But all heading to the same point in the vast ocean. All racing against time. All refusing to let strangers die alone in the dark water. The storm did not care about their courage. It threw waves at them. It pushed them off course. It tested every ship and every sailor. But they kept going. Mile after mile. Hour after hour. Through rain and wind and towering seas, they were coming. And somewhere ahead in the darkness, 43 people were waiting, hoping, praying that help would arrive in time. The celestial horizon was dying. Water filled the lower decks now. The ship tilted at a dangerous angle, nearly 30 degrees to the left. Walking on the deck was like climbing a hill. Everything that was not tied down had slid to one side. Containers had broken loose and crashed into the sea. The sound of metal tearing echoed through the night. Marcus Chon sat at the radio in the communications room. He had not slept in 20 hours. His eyes were red and tired, but he could not rest. He was coordinating between the sinking ship and the 6 rescue vessels. His job was to keep everyone informed. Lives depended on him getting this right. Kaze no Yuda. This is Celestial Horizon. Marcus spoke into the microphone. What is your current position? The Japanese captain's voice came through, broken by static. We are now 420 miles from your position. We are making slow progress. The storm is very strong. Waves are 40 feet high. But we are still coming. Marcus did the math in his head. 420 miles. At their current speed, maybe 12 more hours. He looked at the water rising in the corridor outside the communications room. Did they have 12 hours? Understood. Kaze no Yuda. Thank you for coming. We will try to hold on. He switched channels. Atlantic Promise, this is Celestial Horizon. Please report your position. James Okonkwo's voice was strong and clear. We are 600 miles from you. We are traveling at maximum speed, but the storm is slowing us down. We estimate arrival in 16 hours. How is your situation? Marcus looked at the list in front of him. The ship was taking on water faster now. 3 of the lower decks were completely flooded. The engine room was underwater. The ship was breaking apart. Not good, Atlantic Promise. We may have to abandon ship before you arrive. There was a pause. Then James spoke again. Do what you must do to stay safe. We will find you. Even if you are in lifeboats, we will find you. Marcus felt tears in his eyes. These people did not know him. They did not know anyone on the Celestial Horizon. But they were risking everything to save them. Thank you, Marcus whispered Dot on the bridge. Captain Elena Martinez was making a difficult decision. The ship was sinking faster. Soon it would roll over completely. If they waited too long, the lifeboats would not launch properly. They would be trapped, but if they abandoned ship too early, they would be in small boats in the middle of a terrible storm. The lifeboats could capsize. People could be thrown into the freezing water. They might die before the rescue ships arrived. It was an impossible choice. Stay on a sinking ship or risk the lifeboats in a storm. Elena looked at her first officer, David. What do you think? David was only 28 years old. This was his first voyage as first officer. His hands were shaking. I think we should wait as long as we can. The ship gives us some protection from the wind and waves. In the lifeboats, we will have nothing. Elena nodded. She agreed. We wait. But we must be ready to launch the boats at any moment. Down on the deck, the crew was preparing the lifeboats. There were 4 boats, each capable of holding 15 people. Pedro, the young Mexican deckhand, was checking the supplies in each boat. Water, emergency rations, flares, first aid kits, thermal blankets. Everything needed to survive at sea. Do you think they will reach us in time? Asked another deckhand, a Filipino man named Raman. Pedro tried to smile. Yes, they are coming. 6 ships are coming for us. Raymond looked at the dark ocean. I have a daughter. She is only 3 years old. I promised my wife I would come home. You will see her again, Pedro said, though he was not sure if he believed it himself. On the Kazi no Yuta, Captain Yuki Tanaka was fighting to keep his small fishing boat moving forward. Waves crashed over the bow, flooding the deck with water. The boat rose up one wave and then crashed down the other side. His crew was sick from the constant motion, but they did not complain. Kenji, the first mate, was monitoring the weather. Captain, the storm is moving east. In 6 hours, it might be calmer. 6 hours might be too late, Yuki said. We must go faster. He pushed the engine harder. The old boat groaned under the strain. Yuki had owned this boat for 20 years. He knew every sound it made. He could hear the stress in the engine. But he did not slow down. People needed help. On the Northern Star, Dr. Astrid Johansson was also battling the storm. The research vessel was more modern than the fishing boat, but it was not designed for these conditions. Scientific equipment was breaking loose. Expensive instruments crashed to the floor. One of her scientists, a young man from Sweden, was injured when a storage cabinet fell on him. Dr. Johansson, should we turn back? Asked her first officer. We are damaging the ship. The mission is in danger. Astrid looked at him with cold blue eyes. The mission can wait. People cannot. We continue. On the Atlantic Promise, James Okonkwo received a phone call on the satellite phone. It was Mr. Vanderberg from the company. Captain Okonkwo, I am ordering you to abandon this rescue. and return to your scheduled route immediately. You are costing the company millions of dollars. James was tired. He had been awake for 24 hours, guiding his ship through the worst storm he had seen in years. He did not have patience for this conversation. Mr. Vanderberg, I will submit my resignation when this is over. You can find a new captain. But right now, I am busy saving lives. He hung up the phone and threw it on the table. His crew had heard the conversation. Chidi, the bosun, shook his head. Captain, you should not have to give up your job for doing the right thing. Maybe not, James said. But some things are more important than a job. Marcus was back on the radio. He was coordinating with all 6 ships now, updating them every hour about the celestial horizon's condition. He created a chart showing each ship's position and estimated arrival time. He shared this information with everyone, so all the captains could work together. All rescue vessels, this is Celestial Horizon Communications, Marcus broadcast. I am sending you updated coordinates. Please confirm receipt. One by one, the ships confirmed. The Sea Dragon from Liberia. The Eastern Pearl from Singapore. The Mountain Express from Panama. Each voice gave Marcus hope, but time was running out. The celestial horizon lurched suddenly. There was a loud crack like thunder. The ship had broken in the middle. Water rushed in through the crack. All crew to lifeboat stations. Elena's voice came over the speaker. Prepare to abandon ship. This is not a drill. Marcus grabbed his emergency bag and ran to the deck. The ship was tilting more now, almost 45 degrees. It was hard to walk. He held onto railings and walls to keep from falling. Other crew members were doing the same, helping each other, making sure nobody was left behind. Elena stood at the lifeboat station, counting her crew. 43, she said when everyone was there. We are all here. The lifeboats hung on their davits, ready to be lowered into the water. But the sea below was violent. Waves smashed against the side of the dying ship. Launching the lifeboats in these conditions would be extremely dangerous. Captain, should we launch? David asked. Elena looked at her watch. The Kazi no Yuta was still 10 hours away. The other ships were even farther. Could they survive 10 hours in lifeboats in the storm? She did not know. But staying on the ship was certain death. The celestial horizon was breaking apart. Launch the boats, she ordered. 2 boats first. Once they are safely in the water, we launch the other 2. The crew worked quickly. They loaded into the boats, 11 people in each. The davits creaked as they lowered the first boat toward the water. The boat swung wildly in the wind. It smashed against the side of the ship, then swung out again. Lower it faster. Someone shouted "Dot." The boat hit the water and immediately disappeared in a wave. For a terrible moment, everyone thought it was gone. Then it appeared again, riding over the next wave. The crew inside was bailing out water as fast as they could. The second boat launched. It hit the water hard, but stayed upright. Now half the crew was in the ocean, floating in small boats that seemed impossibly tiny compared to the massive waves. Elena was in the third boat with Marcus and 9 others. As they lowered toward the water, she looked up at her ship one last time. The celestial horizon had been her command for 5 years. She knew every inch of it. Now it was dying, torn apart by the sea. Their boat hit the water. A wave immediately crashed over them, filling the boat with freezing water. Marcus grabbed a bucket and started bailing. Everyone else did the same. They had to keep the boat from sinking. The 4th boat launched and made it safely into the water. All 43 crew members were now in 4 small lifeboats, scattered across the violent ocean. The celestial horizon groaned behind them, its back broken, water pulling it down. Marcus pulled out a waterproof radio from his emergency bag. His hands were shaking from cold and fear, but he managed to turn it on. All rescue vessels, this is Celestial Horizon. We have abandoned ship. We are now in 4 lifeboats. Please hurry. Across the ocean, 6 captains heard those words, and they pushed their ships even harder, racing against time and storm to reach 4 small boats lost in an endless sea. The night seemed endless. In the 4 lifeboats, the crew of the Celestial Horizon fought to stay alive. Water constantly crashed over them. They bailed with buckets, with their hands, with anything they could use. Their arms ached. Their fingers were numb from cold. But they did not stop. Stopping meant sinking. Marcus was in the 3rd lifeboat with Captain Elena and 9 others. He kept the radio close, checking it every few minutes to make sure it still worked. The salt water could destroy it at any moment. The radio was their only connection to the rescue ships. Without it, they would be invisible in the vast ocean. Celestial Horizon lifeboats, this is Kaze no Yuta. The voice crackled through the speaker. It was Captain Yuki. We are now 90 miles from your position. We will reach you in approximately 4 hours. Can you hold on? Marcus pressed the transmit button. His voice was hoarse from yelling over the wind. We are trying, Kaze no Yuta. The boats are taking on water. We are very cold. But we are still here. Keep bailing, Yuki said. We are coming as fast as we can. Do not give up. 4 hours. Marcus looked around the lifeboat. Everyone was exhausted. Pedro, the young deckhand, was shivering so badly his teeth chattered. An older engineer named Dmitri had stopped bailing. He just sat there, staring at nothing. Dmitri, Marcus shouted. Keep working. We have to keep bailing. Dmitri did not respond. Elena reached over and shook him. Dmitri, stay with us. We are going to survive this. But you have to help. Slowly, Dmitri picked up his bucket again and started bailing. His movements were slow and weak, but he was moving. That was something. In the 1st lifeboat, David, the 1st officer, was trying to keep his group together. The 4 boats had drifted apart in the storm. They could not see each other anymore. Each boat was alone in the darkness, surrounded by waves that seemed like mountains. Does anyone see the other boats? David shouted. Nobody answered. They were all focused on surviving. One of the crew members, a young woman named Maria from the Philippines, was praying out loud. Her voice mixed with the wind and the waves. Others joined her prayer, speaking in different languages. Tagalog, Spanish, Greek, English. But they were all praying for the same thing: rescue. On the Kaze no Yuta, Captain Yuki could see the first hints of dawn. The sky was turning from black to dark gray. The storm was beginning to weaken, but the seas were still very rough. He had pushed his fishing boat to its limits. The engine was making strange sounds. But they were close now. Kenji, do you see anything? Yuki asked his first mate. Kenji was scanning the ocean with binoculars. The rain made it hard to see. Not yet, Captain. But according to the coordinates, they should be very close. The radio crackled. Kaze no Yuta, this is Celestial Horizon Lifeboat 3. We can see your lights. We can see you. Yuki felt his heart leap. We see you too. We are coming. Through the gray dawn, he could see a small orange shape rising and falling in the waves. A lifeboat. His crew rushed to prepare ropes and rescue equipment. This would be difficult. The waves were still 15 feet high. Getting people from the lifeboat onto the fishing boat without anyone falling into the water would require perfect timing. Bring us alongside slowly, Yuki ordered. Very slowly. The Kaze no Yuta approached the lifeboat. Yuki could see people inside, waving their arms. They looked exhausted and wet, but they were alive. He threw a rope to them. Marcus caught it and tied it to the lifeboat. One at a time. Yuki shouted, "Wait for the right moment when the boats are level." The first person to cross was Elena. She waited until a wave lifted the lifeboat to the same height as the fishing boat. Then she jumped. Strong hands grabbed her and pulled her onto the deck. She collapsed, coughing up seawater. One by one, the crew crossed from the lifeboat to the Kazi no Yuta. It took almost an hour to get all 11 people safely aboard. When Marcus was the last one in the lifeboat, he looked back at the small orange boat that had kept them alive. Then he jumped .yuk. I caught him. "You made it. You are safe now." Marcus could not speak. He just nodded, tears mixing with the rain on his face. "Captain, there are 3 more lifeboats out here somewhere." Marcus finally managed to say, "We will find them." Yuki promised. The Kaz no Yuta began searching. But they were a small fishing boat. They had rescued 11 people, but now the boat was crowded. Taking on more people would be dangerous. They needed help. Help was coming. 2 hours later, the Atlantic Promise arrived. James Okongwo's large cargo ship appeared through the rain like a metal mountain. The Kazi no Yuta guided them to the area where the other lifeboats should be. From the bridge of the Atlantic Promise, James spotted the second lifeboat. It was in bad condition. One side was partially deflated. Water filled half the boat. The people inside were barely moving. "Prepare the rescue ladder," James ordered. "Get the medical team ready." The Atlantic Promise was much larger than the fishing boat, which made the rescue easier in some ways, but harder in others. The cargo ship's deck was high above the water. They had to lower rope ladders down to the lifeboat. Chidi, the bosun, rappelled down to the lifeboat on a safety line. He was a big, strong man, and he lifted people one by one and helped them climb the ladder. Some were too weak to climb, so the crew above had to pull them up with ropes. David was in this boat. When Chidi reached him, David could barely speak. "There are 2 more boats," he whispered. "Find them. Please find them." "We will," Chidi promised. They rescued all 12 people from the second lifeboat. The ship's doctor, a woman from India named Dr. Patel, was waiting for them. She wrapped them in thermal blankets and checked each person for injuries. 2 had hypothermia. 1 had a broken arm. But everyone was alive. The Northern Star found the third lifeboat an hour later. Dr. Astrid Johansson had been searching systematically, creating a grid pattern to cover the ocean. When her lookout spotted the orange lifeboat, she felt overwhelming relief. This boat was in the worst condition. It had capsized once during the night, and the crew had managed to flip it back over, but now it was taking on water fast. The people inside were using their hands to bail because they have lost all their buckets. "We have to hurry," Astrid said. "That boat is sinking." The Northern Star deployed its rescue boat, a small motorized craft. 3 of Astrid's crew members drove it to the lifeboat. They threw life rings to the people in the water. Several had already fallen out of the sinking lifeboat. "Grab the rings," they shouted. "We will pull you in." Raymond, the Filipino deckhand who had a 3-year-old daughter, was in the water. He was a good swimmer, but he was exhausted, and the cold water was draining his strength. He grabbed the life ring and held on as they pulled him to the rescue boat. Other crew members were pulled from the water one by one. They saved 10 people from the lifeboat and 3 from the water. 13 total. When they were all aboard the Northern Star, wrapped in blankets and drinking hot tea, Raymond started crying. "I thought I would never see my daughter again." Dr. Astrid sat next to him. "You are safe now. You will see your daughter." But there was still one more lifeboat out there. The 4th boat had 11 people on it. They had drifted farther from the others. The storm had pushed them east. Nobody knew exactly where they were. The Sea Dragon, the Eastern Pearl, and the Mountain Express were all searching. They formed a wide search pattern, communicating with each other by radio. The sun was rising now. The storm was ending. But where was the fourth lifeboat? On the fourth lifeboat, the crew was in desperate condition. They had been in the water longer than the others. Their boat had a slow leak that they could not fix. No matter how much they bailed, water kept coming in. They were sinking very slowly. An Indonesian sailor named Iko had taken charge. "Keep bailing," he told everyone. "The ships are looking for us. They will find us. We just have to stay afloat a little longer." But some people had given up hope. They sat in the water that filled the bottom of the boat, too tired to move. Echo went to each person and made them stand up and bail. "Do not stop. The moment you stop, you die. So do not stop." Then they heard it, the sound of a ship's horn, long and loud, cutting through the air. "There!" someone shouted, pointing. The Mountain Express appeared through the clearing rain. It was a massive bulk carrier, the largest of all the rescue ships. When the people in the lifeboat saw it, they started shouting and waving. The captain of the Mountain Express, a man from Greece named Captain Stavros, had his crew ready. They launched their rescue boat and picked up all 11 people. The last person rescued was Iko, who made sure everyone else was safe before he left the sinking lifeboat. When all 43 crew members were accounted for, safe on different ships, Marcus sent one final radio message to all the rescue vessels. "To all ships who responded to our distress call. This is Marcus Chun, radio operator of the Celestial Horizon. All 43 crew members have been rescued. Everyone is alive. Thank you. Thank you for risking everything to save us. We will never forget what you did for us today." Across the ocean, on 6 different ships, crews cheered. They had done it. Through storm and darkness and doubt, they had done it. Not one life was lost. 43 strangers were saved by people who had never met them and might never see them again. This was the law of the sea. This was humanity at its best. The rescue ships sailed to different ports. Each ship had its own destination, its own schedule to keep. The 43 survivors of the Celestial Horizon were scattered across 6 vessels, heading to 6 different harbors in 3 different countries. The Kazdi no Yuta was the first to reach land. Captain Yuki brought his fishing boat into Yokohama, Japan, 3 days after the rescue. He had 11 survivors on board, including Captain Elena Martinez and Marcus Chun. The port was crowded with reporters and camera crews. News of the rescue had spread around the world. When Elena walked down the gangway, her legs were shaky. She had not walked on solid ground in 4 days. Reporters surrounded her, shouting questions in Japanese and English. She raised her hand for silence. "I want to say thank you to Captain Yuki Tanaka and his crew," Elena said, her voice strong despite her exhaustion. "They risked their lives and their boat to save us. They did not have to come, but they came anyway. We owe them everything." Yuki stood nearby, uncomfortable with all the attention. He was a simple fisherman, not used to cameras and reporters. When they asked him why he had responded to the distress call, he simply said, "It was the right thing to do." Any sailor would have done the same, but not every sailor would have done the same. Not every captain would have turned their ship around. Not every crew would have faced the storm. Yuki and his men had made a choice, and that choice had saved 11 lives. Marcus stood next to Elena, watching the scene. His phone buzzed in his pocket. It was a message from his mother in Singapore. She had seen the news and was crying with relief. "Come home soon," the message said. "We love you." Marcus typed back, "I am coming home. I love you too." 2 days later, the Atlantic Promise docked in Los Angeles. James Oconchuo had 12 survivors on his ship. When they arrived, James expected to be fired. He had disobeyed direct orders from the company. He had delayed the cargo delivery by 4 days. Surely Mr. Vanderberg would fire him. But when James walked into the port office, something unexpected happened. Mr. Vanderberg was there. But so was the CEO of the shipping company, a woman named Mrs. Vanderberg. She was Mr. Vanderberg's mother and the owner of the company. "Captain Okonkwo," she said, standing up, "I need to speak with you." James stood straight, ready to hand over his resignation. But Mrs. Vanderberg did something surprising. She shook his hand. "Thank you," she said. "Thank you for reminding us what is important. My son was wrong to tell you not to help those people. You did the right thing. Your job is safe, and you have my apologies for any trouble." Mr. Vanderberg stood in the corner, looking embarrassed. His mother had obviously scolded him severely. James felt a weight lift from his shoulders. "Thank you, ma'am. I just did what any sailor should do." "Not every sailor would have done it," she said. "That is what makes you special." The survivors from James's ship were reunited with their families at the port. David, the young first officer, hugged his parents and cried. Dimitri, the Greek engineer, kissed his wife and held her for a long time without speaking. Chidi, the bosun, lifted his children into his arms and spun them around. Laughing with joy, the Northern Star arrived in San Francisco 5 days after the rescue. Dr. Astrid Johansson had 13 survivors on board, including Raymond, the Filipino deckhand. When the ship docked, Raymond's wife was waiting with their 3-year-old daughter. The little girl did not recognize her father at first. Raymond had lost weight during the ordeal. His face was sunburned and tired. But when he knelt down and opened his arms, she ran to him. "Daddy!" she cried. Raymond held his daughter and cried. His wife joined the embrace, and the 3 of them stood there on the dock, a family reunited. Astrid watched from the ship's deck. One of her scientists stood next to her. "Dr. Johansson, the research equipment we lost was worth millions of dollars. The mission data is incomplete. Was it worth it?" Astrid looked at Raymond and his family. "Yes," she said simply. "It was worth it." The other rescue ships arrived in their respective ports over the next week. The Sea Dragon docked in Hong Kong. The Eastern Pearl reached Singapore. The Mountain Express arrived in Panama City. Each ship brought survivors home. Each reunion was emotional and joyful. 3 months later, there was a ceremony. The International Maritime Organization held a special event in London to honor the 6 ships and their crews. All the captains were invited, along with representatives from their crews. The 43 survivors of the Celestial Horizon were also there. The ceremony was held in a grand hall with marble floors and high ceilings. Diplomats and maritime officials from around the world attended. But the most important people, there were the rescuers and the rescued. Captain Yuki Tanaka received the IMO Award for exceptional bravery at sea. When he accepted the medal, he said, "I did not do this for an award. I did it because my father was once rescued from the sea by strangers. I was only repaying a debt that my family owed to the ocean and to sailors everywhere." James Okonkwo also received an award. In his speech, he said, "My company asked me to choose between my cargo and 43 human lives. That was the easiest choice I ever made. Cargo can be replaced. Human lives cannot." Dr. Astrid Johansson spoke about the importance of human connection. Science is important. Research is important. But people are more important. We can always gather more data. We can always conduct more experiments. But we cannot replace a human life. Every person matters. All 6 captains were honored. Their crews received recognition. And the survivors stood together tears streaming down their faces as they thanked the people who had saved them. During the ceremony, Marcus Chan asked to speak. He walked to the podium, nervous but determined. He looked at the 6 captains sitting in the front row. "I was the radio operator on the celestial horizon," Marcus said. "When our ship was sinking, I sent out the SOS. I did not know if anyone would hear it. I did not know if anyone would come. We were so far from land, in the middle of a terrible storm. It would have been easy for ships to ignore our call. They could have said it was too dangerous. They could have said it was not their responsibility. But they did not say that." He paused, his voice shaking with emotion. 6 ships heard our call. 6 captains made the decision to turn around. They risked their ships, their cargo, their jobs, and their lives. They came through a storm that could have killed them. Why? Because we needed help. Because that is what sailors do. Because that is what humanity is supposed to do. Marcus looked directly at the captains. "You saved 43 people. 43 fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, brothers, and sisters. You gave us back our lives. You gave our families back their loved ones. We can never repay you. But we will never forget you. None of us will ever forget what you did." The hall erupted in applause. People stood and clapped for a long time. The 6 captains looked embarrassed by all the attention, but they also looked proud. After the ceremony, there was a reception. The survivors mixed with the rescuers, sharing stories and taking pictures. Elena Martinez found Captain Yuki and hugged him. "You gave me a second chance at life," she said. "I smiled. "And you gave me a reason to believe in humanity again." Raymond introduced his daughter to the crew of the Northern Star. The little girl gave each person a drawing she had made. They were simple pictures, drawn by a child's hand, but each crew member treasured them like gold. Pedro, the young Mexican deckhand, spoke with Chidi, the Nigerian bosun from the Atlantic Promise. "Do you think we would have done the same?" Pedro asked. "If we heard an SOS, would we have risked everything to save strangers?" Chidi thought about it. "I hope so. I hope that if the situation was reversed, we would be the ones racing through the storm to help someone else." At night, Marcus stood on a balcony overlooking the Thames River. The city lights reflected on the water. He thought about the night in the lifeboat, when death seemed certain. He thought about the moment he heard Captain Yuki's voice on the radio, saying they were coming. He thought about all the people who had chosen to help when they could have chosen to sail away. Elena joined him on the balcony. "What are you thinking about?" she asked. "I am thinking that the world is not as dark as it sometimes seems," Marcus said. "There is still kindness. There is still courage. There are still people who will risk everything to save a stranger." Elena nodded. 6 ships came for us, from 6 different countries, different languages, different cultures, different reasons for being out there on the ocean. But when we needed help, they all came together. They became one fleet with one mission. "To save lives," Marcus said. "To save lives." Elena agreed. The next day, Marcus returned to Singapore. He went back to work as a radio operator, but on a different ship. Every time he sent out a message across the ocean, he thought about that night. He thought about the 6 ships that had responded to their call. Raymond went back to sea as well. He could have quit and found a job on land, but he loved the ocean. His wife understood. His daughter was too young to understand, but one day he would tell her the story of how strangers saved his life so that he could come home to her captain. Elena Martinez was given command of a new ship. On her first voyage, she made sure her crew knew the law of the sea. "If you ever hear a distress call," she told them, "we will respond, always, no matter what. Because someone once responded to my call, and that is why I'm here today." The 6 rescue ships continued their work. The Kazi no Yuda went back to fishing. The Atlantic Promise went back to carrying cargo. The Northern Star returned to its research. But they all carried something new with them. They carried the knowledge that they had made a difference. They had saved 43 lives. Years later, Marcus would tell the story to his own children. He would tell them about the storm, and the sinking ship, and the 4 lifeboats. And he would tell them about 6 ships that came through the darkness to save strangers. Why did they come, Papa? His children would ask Dot, and Marcus would answer, because when someone calls for help, humanity responds. That is the law of the sea. That is the law of being human. We take care of each other. We save each other. No matter who we are or where we come from, we are all part of one human fleet. This was the true story. Not of a ship that sank, but of humanity that rose. Not of 43 people who nearly died, but of 6 crews who chose life over convenience, compassion over profit, and courage over fear. Their SOS requested aid, and a human fleet responded.